Greetings, everyone. My name is David McLeod. Welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. It's been amazing to me that I've been doing this now for, well, since 2014. And we are up to episode 173 today. And we're calling this one Topsy-Turvy Life. And before I go into the description of today's presentation, I want to talk a little bit about something else that's going on. And you may have heard different people from the wellness universe talking about an amazing gathering that's taking place in Boone, North Carolina this October. It's called Soul Treat. And it's a wonderful, wonderful gathering of like-minded individuals, healers, coaches, gurus, teachers, poets, musicians, you name it. Anybody who's involved in the wellness world in some way or another is welcome to come and attend. And the reason I'm bringing this up today is because the founder of the Wellness Universe, Anna Pereira, pointed out to me that the Soul Treat pricing is going to increase effective the 1st of June. Now, right now, you can get yourself a ticket for $499, but as of 1st of June, it's going to go up to $649. So I would encourage you to go and check out the website. I'm going to paste that right into the link here, into the chat. It's, let me just hit that key. There we go. So it's at WUSoultreat, SOULTREAT.com. I encourage you to go check that out and read through some of the testimonials and everything else and see if it's something that calls to you. I mean, I plan to be there. I'm going to be sharing some stuff about growing from pain to passion. And it's going to be an interesting presentation, I can assure you, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I've been there for the last two. Awesome, awesome experience. One of the best kinds of retreats I've ever been to. So I encourage you to check it out. All right, so let's get down to it. Now, if you are like most people, there's a good chance that you occasionally find yourself dealing with situations that seem confusing or disorienting. When that happens, you might imagine that, like Alice in Wonderland, you have inadvertently slipped down a rabbit hole where everything is topsy-turvy and upside down. Sometimes, strange things really do happen in our lives. But more often than not, what's really going on is that we've allowed our ego mind belief systems to get the better of us. And all that's really happening is that our soul is trying to shake us back into the truth of who we really are. Today, I've invited an integrative quantum healer and spiritual guide to join us for a rousing conversation about living a larger version of yourself, even in the face of some of the confusion that might be present in your life. My guest is the founder of the Perspective Reboot Multidimensional Energy Medicine. She shares ancient wisdom, insights, and activations that help others release obsolete programming, physical pain and disease, and beliefs that have held them back. So please join me in welcoming the delightful Kristi Borst to our show today. Welcome, Kristi.
Thank you, David.
Yeah.
My camera's just starting up here. Here we go.
There it comes. Okay. Glad we finally got that part sorted out, and I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here. I'm excited to share this message and just to chat about it.
Yeah, good. Now, as we were communicating back and forth about, this topic and what you were envisioning, I know we had a couple of different titles come up, and one of them was, I think it was called your lifetime flip-flops or something like that. And then we settled on this topsy-turvy life thing. And I mean, what that tells me is that something about your life may have gone upside down or topsy-turvy or in some way that caused you to start paying attention to things and led you eventually to this path. Can you share us a little bit about that story and what maybe happened in your life that got you involved in this?
I'd love to. The path, I guess, that I'm on now has always been a part of me, but this is kind of part of what the overall message is that I don't have all the answers myself. I've had to, do work with others and have some readings with other people to really get more of a sense of what was going on in my life. Excuse me, but I came into this lifetime as Kristi with an ability to do this healing work that I'm doing now. And I was told as a small child to shut that ability down. And that's not unusual for most of us to have, gifts and abilities shut down. And I can see that now as more of a challenge of the higher self to find out, if we can find our way back to ourselves. And I mentioned, I didn't get my answers all by myself. I could go on this forever, with so many wonderful things that happened. But in 2012, I had a kind of waking moment connection with myself in another lifetime. And again, through having readings, I came to understand that this Native people, I don't know if it was America, I don't know if it was South America, but this Native person aspect of myself came into that lifetime with healing abilities and was embraced by his tribe, was groomed by the then medicine woman, was allowed to be the healer at a young age. And so I can now see this flip-flop in this lifetime of coming in with similar abilities, but being told to shut that down. And this type of kind of flip-flop happens in many aspects of our lives, so that things that came easy to us in another time, space, dimension, or are coming to easy to us if you believe what quantum science is saying now, that time does not exist in linear form. So things that we may see as challenges are actually opportunities. So in 2012, I had this amazing experience of interacting with myself in this way, and it really almost got me immediately out of being very mind-oriented, very needing to understand explanations for everything, which, I was encouraged as a child to be in my mind because I'm smart, right? To get all A's, to do, very mind-centric focus. And so this experience really kind of almost blew me open in a way to get more into my heart space, to open as I was as a child, as we all are as children, to the magic of life, to the unexplainable.
Right. Wow, you've covered a lot in that short presentation there. One thing that I have noticed, a lot of my guests have expressed a similar kind of dynamic that has happened with them as they were children. Basically, being told to shut themselves down, whatever that however they say it, it comes out with a similar kind of message. And I know that was kind of similar for me too. A lot of my energy was created discomfort for my mother, and I was, at the course, I wouldn't have explained it that way, when I was 3 years old or 2 years old or whatever time. My mom was just angry about me, and therefore I was wrong, I was broken, I was doing something to hurt her. That's how I was thinking about it back then. And so I've had a similar experience, this idea of being shut down, although I don't know if I would have used those words, okay? And what I am beginning to understand now, as so many people are going through that very experience, and I'm wondering if it's part of a collective journey that we're on, to have the experience of coming in, knowing we've got these gifts, and then having some energy trying to shut them down so that we can rise above that, whatever that energy is, and really blossom into the truth of who we are. That's what I'm beginning to understand now. I mean, I haven't had the luxury or maybe that's not the right word. I haven't had the experience, I'll say, of remembering past lives. And I know other people have talked about that. So that's not part of my experience yet. So I can't compare. But I know other people have had that experience. And I like the way you're describing it as one life where the gift was encouraged and embraced and nurtured, and then another case where the opposite. And yet in both cases, I'm sure you've found a way to bring the gift forward regardless of what the rest of the world was saying. Is that really what you're getting to here?
Well, I think ultimately, David, we're all here for a reason. And we're all, in a way, playing hide and seek with ourselves.
Yeah, that's good.
And so we can't blame anyone for, you can't blame your mother for how she treated you in a way, because that may have been a pre-birth arrangement that she was to be that person for you. If it wasn't her, it may have been someone else. So ultimately, when we see that we're here as these expansive beings, eternal beings, having a human experience, the goal is really to have new experiences and to find ways that we either have accepted others' views of us, others' limitations on us, others' definitions of us, how we've adopted those ourselves, and how we are the ones now that are hiding ourselves or limiting ourselves. And in the session work that I do, many times these understandings of prior life patterns come forth and really explain to people how they're victim, right? But they're also victor. So when we can start to see ourselves in these kind of flip-flop ways and understand that we've had these topsy-turvy lives where, in one aspect we're, easygoing and, smooth sailing, and the next lifetime it's choppy waters. But getting to that place of faith within ourselves that we really can overcome everything and anything unless we believe we can't.
Well, and you've said a very key word there. It's really about belief, isn't it? And you mentioned earlier too that you were encouraged to stay in your mind because you're a smart person, and that's not unusual. I think our entire culture wants us to stay in our minds and out of our hearts, because those emotions, man, you can't deal with emotions. You have to deal with logic and reason. And so all that stuff has been kind of rammed down our throats over the course of, well, certainly in my lifetime. And
well, we're in a very science-based, or we have been in a very science-based model or energy, right, which really has shifted. We're shifting out of that. I'm just making a note, and I'm going to hold it up because it's one of the key tools I use, and I hope it's not going to be backwards. Is it backwards?
No, I see it. No, it
okay, so you
with
can
the word,
see
with the letters LIE in caps. Got it.
Yes, so many times in the center of our beliefs, there's a lie. And that's why we have to really assess. This is part of self-awareness, is being aware of what our belief systems are and rooting out those lies, because ultimately we're the one that's creating our lifetime, our experience here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And to me, there's a dichotomy as I see it. First of all, we have our spiritual nature, and then we have our physical nature. And the physical nature comes with an ego mind associated with it. And it's that ego mind that is designed to try and keep the physical aspects of ourselves safe and protected and all that kind of stuff. And so it's the ego that actually, first of all, attaches to beliefs. Any belief that I have, my ego mind will attach to it. And secondly, the ego mind can twist those beliefs. So, then they do become lies. Absolutely. And the ego mind isn't doing this because it's trying to be, nasty or manipulative or anything like that. It's doing it because it's trying to keep us safe, and it will do anything to accomplish that fact. But the other reason is the ego mind has its own self-interest at heart. The ego figures, if I don't pay attention to my ego is going to die. That's the fear that the ego has. And so consequently, it's doing all kinds of things to stay alive and to stay present. Whereas my soul already knows that it's going to live forever, or it has been living forever, and will continue to do so. And when I'm in communion with my soul, then the ego mind just doesn't really have any power over me anymore. So,
and you brought up fear, and fear is a huge motivator for many people. This time that we're in right now with COVID, there are many people who are, almost paralyzed by their fear.
Absolutely.
And, I have this other awareness that the mind, or you call it the ego, I call it the mind will only see what we believe we will see. So if, for example, I'm going to make up a scenario here. If I have a friend, and I think that friend doesn't like me as much as I like her, and I do more for the relationship or whatever, my mind will literally ignore things that she's doing to reinforce my belief.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so we have to be aware of what we're focusing on. And I see in this time, I see hope. I see a shifting. I see an opportunity to shed our fears, to look in another direction than our fears, to see how we're all connected. This virus is showing us we're connected with people around the world, and what one person does halfway across the world affects us. So we can see negative, or we can see positive.
Yep.
And so I encourage people to, again, assess where they're looking, assess how they're vibrating fear, because fear is really, it may support the ego, as you say, but it doesn't support our physical bodies. Right. I believe fear actually takes our autoimmune system offline to some extent.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think, well, there's a lot here that I would like to reply to. The fear thing is, what I have learned for myself and for many of my clients, is that about 98% of all fear is imaginary. It's not real at all. There are some situations where your fear is quite justified. If you're about to get hit by a car or something, then your body goes into that, that motion. Or if you slip and almost fall down a cliff, you get that same kind of feeling. when there's actual danger involved, real danger, yeah, you're going to feel fear. But the problem is you can feel exactly the same experience from stuff that's just completely made up in your head, that's made up by your ego mind. And by the way, the reason I make the distinction between the ego mind and just the mind is that it is possible to use the mind in a very positive, constructive way. But if you allow the ego mind to take control, that's when things start getting out of hand. That's the reason I make the distinction. But I totally agree with you that the whole idea, I have noticed, once I have a belief, my ego mind really attaches to that, and I'm using slightly different words than you, but I think I'm saying the same thing. My ego mind attaches to it, and it filters everything that comes into me, and anything that doesn't conform with that belief gets kind of immediately excluded, and only things that support that belief get let in. So this is one of the reasons that I try to teach people, stop believing. Instead, have a theory about something. Here's what I found. My ego mind, when I say, to use your example, I have a theory that Joanne doesn't like me as much as I like her. I wonder what truth there might be in that theory. Now, when I put it that way, my ego mind is not quite as attached to it and is more willing to allow in contrary evidence. And therefore, I can now look at my theory and say, I wasn't looking at all the evidence. Here's something that proves that that's not a valid theory. So, I'm just offering that as a suggestion for people, and it works for me. So
that's a great I guess process. And I do think, yes, we're saying the same thing but different semantics. For me, I call what you call the mind as the observer self. So the observer self is above the mind, or in your case, the ego. So I kind of use the analogy of, imagine you have a little drone that you can put your consciousness in, and just, kind of hover above. Just hover above, yourself, and watch yourself, and see what you're thinking, and see, where are your choices coming from. So yes, we're saying the same thing. It's just a different way of putting it, but sometimes a different way is how people hear things. So
right,
all good.
Now, I noticed you replied to Sarah. Sarah says our fears create a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I think that's absolutely true. I totally agree with that. And yet, if you think about it, there's no reason why we cannot flip that over and come to a place of love and let love be our self-fulfilling prophecy. There's no reason why we can't do that. We all have the power, that's for sure. So, one of the biggest fears that I think people have is a fear of insufficiency, not enoughness. There's lack, or there's no abundance. And so they have to compensate by hoarding stuff, keeping it to themselves, not sharing, that sort of thing. What do you have to say about that?
Well, first of all, I'd like to share my impression, or my truth, if you will, that our thoughts, our emotions, and the images, whether we have a visual image or not, or whether it's just vibrational, based on those thoughts and those emotions. Those non-physical things that we're doing are actually creating. They're actually part of our creative abilities. So the universe doesn't operate in words. It operates in these kind of vibrational, non-physical. If we look at our physical world, if we want to build a house, first we have the idea we want to build a house, then we make a sketch on a napkin, then we hire an architect, and on, and then we create the physical. The same is true in our worlds, in our bodies. So first of all, we need to be mindful of what we're creating. Many times people who are very ill are exceptional creators. They're just creating what they don't want.
Yeah.
So when we're, in this place of fear, when we're in this place of lack, we're actually part of the problem because we're amplifying that lack.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when we can kind of see our power within this situation we've been creating, we can start to shift the script, if you will, and rather than doing or, what do I have to do? What do I have to do to get, out of this place of fear, out of this place of lack? It's more of a surrender. It's more of a melting, I guess. It's hard to explain it, but doing, achieving, hoarding, those are all male energies. And we need to melt more into that female energy of nurturing ourselves, trusting, creating love. And the energies that have come in with the kind of end of the Mayan calendar in 2012 are in support of that female energy. So the time is ripe for us to make these shifts. So, I can give you again like myriad examples in my own life of really going from that belief that I had to work hard, I had to have X amount of money as my, income. I surrendered as many people in this industry have, I surrendered a corporate job to do my healing resonance work full time. And no, I'm not making that figure of salary that I was making, but there are so many unexpected, unpredicted things that happen that bring me exactly what I need.
Yeah. That's beautiful, and I couldn't agree more with you on that. Yeah, the let's call it the science side of thing versus the non-linear spiritual side of things. The science side of it does indeed seem to be, we're way over on that side of the pendulum right now. And we are still pushing ego-based systems in our world, which is causing people to get caught up in this rat race that you were talking about of going for the job, accomplishing this, getting the house, having the kids, having the family, doing all the things that external view of society tell you that you're supposed to do, when none of that actually really matters one way or the other. I mean, it's a way to have an experience of life. That part is true, but it isn't really who you are deep down inside. It's just a temporary expression, a data point that kind of represents how you are showing up right now. So if we can learn to let go of that connection, then attachment to any particular dollar amount is completely irrelevant. Attachment to any particular physical ownership or hoarding or any of that stuff kind of falls by the wayside. And I like how you describe surrender as a kind of a melting. I mean, I think that's where the word comes from, to melt over. That's where it means. I mean, rendering fat, for example, you know what I mean? So the idea is when we can learn to surrender, then we become aware that there's more than enough to take care of ourselves, and we can recognize and become aware of the fact that all of the thoughts that we had before were just simply fleeting thoughts. We could have let go at any time. But the beauty is we're letting go now. And so now when we let go...
I'm just, my husband...
Sorry, go ahead. Uh-oh, I don't know what's happened, but you appear to have, your camera seems to have frozen. I don't know if you can still hear me. Can you hear me now? Okay, I think we've just lost Kristi. I hope she comes back. I don't know what's going on there. But this is an interesting conversation, because what we're talking about is taking our power and reclaiming it from the inside, so that we allow our souls to guide the ship instead of allowing our ego minds to do that. The moment we can do that, then everything just kind of falls into place. And what I was saying is that this illusion of lack or insufficiency or limitation or any of those other words that you might imagine, they simply go away. They simply stop. And because they stop, now you can begin to see that there's more than enough of everything for everyone. You know, Kristi was talking about making a lot of money in whatever business she was doing before as a corporate person. And now she's doing something different where she's not making quite the same amount of money. The point is, she is much happier with what she is doing now, because it fills her heart. It fulfills the truth of who she is. That's what she's talking about here. And I have had the same experience. The idea that I can, how many times have I lost a job? I've lost a job many times, and yeah, been without income for a while. What's interesting to me is that under no circumstance did I ever get to the point where I didn't have meals, I didn't have a place to live, I didn't have, shelter. All of my basic needs have always been met, no matter what kind of situations I have found myself in. So that's something that you can learn too. So I'm not sure what else to say at this point. I don't know what's happened to Kristi. I hope she comes back. I don't want to have to end this too early. Yeah, she's not even on the list anymore. Sarah, are you there? Oh, there's Kristi. She's back in now. She's just showing up again. Okay, Kristi, I see your microphone is on. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, good. So if you could just come back on camera.
Sorry about that.
Nah, this happens sometimes. I'm glad you're able to get back in.
There we go.
Are you on a Wi-Fi connection, or are you on a physical direct connection?
I'm on the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I think I think sometimes the Wi-Fi. I try to use a direct Ethernet connection in my home, because it generally has less problems associated with it.
I did try that, but the computer crashed, so that's why I went back. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry I didn't hear your last passage.
Well, it's okay. You started to freeze up there, and I just kind of riffed it for a while.
Good.
You're still not coming on camera here. I don't know what's going on there.
Okay. I can see me.
Interesting. Well, I don't know what's going on. I don't see you at all. Sarah, do you see Kristi? Can you see her? No, she can't see you either. So try leaving your camera again. Just leave, turn off the camera and go through the process one more time. You have to remember that there's a little pop-up that shows up and asks if you have, or that you can have permission to access the camera. Okay, Kristi, it looks like I can't hear you now either. Are you still there? Okay, she's typing. This is quite interesting. This is what life looks like when it's really topsy-turvy, when things aren't working out. It happens. It happens to everybody. And well, we just do the best we can with it. So, Kristi, see if you can, yeah, go out and come back in again. I don't know what's going on your end. If you can't get back in, we may just have to call this short and be done with it. But right now, your microphone's not on and your camera's not on. Well, I'll just reiterate what I was saying before about Soul Treat. I'd like to remind you that Soul Treat is an event for healers and wellness practitioners, Reiki masters, poets, musicians, anybody who's involved in the wellness business, for those of us who are involved, to come together and support each other and do some work together. It's more about giving ourselves some of the love and attention that we give to all of our clients all the time. And it's a beautiful 2-day or 3-day, depending on whether you're a premium member or a lower level member. You get to participate in a whole bunch of amazing presentations and practices, and they've got a server fair that's going on there and that sort of thing. And the idea is you get to participate pretty much with anything you want. And the whole idea is around reset and, oh, I can't remember what the other keyword is off the top of my head. Let me just quickly check on the website. It's called Reset and Release. That's it. Release and reset. But what I'd encourage you to do is go and head over to the website for the Soul Treat event. It's called WU Soul Treat, SOULTREAT.com. WooSoulTreat.com. And you'll find out more about the retreat and you'll be able to sign up if you're interested. Just to let you know, the price right now is $499. And that price will go up to $649 effective the 1st of June. So if you're interested, please sign up right now. Kristi, I see that you're back in again. Your mic is on, but it's muted, and we're just trying to get you back on camera. Aha! At last, she's back on. Yay! Well, we had an interesting little, that was a topsy-turvy moment.
Yes, we have, we just blasted the internet with our energy.
There you go. And well, thank you for being persistent and coming back.
Oh, sure. Sorry, you guys.
No problem. I saw that your camera was starting to freeze there partway through, and so I tried to riff for a while, but I kind of ran out of steam partway through. Anyway, one of the things that we had discussed before coming on here was talking about the gifts that we can get out of our fear. I'd like to kind of address that a little bit because people don't often think about fear as something good. They usually always think of it as something bad. So let's talk a little bit about the gifts that we can find within our fears.
So many times the way that we judge ourselves is part of that hide and seek game. So I'll give you an example with myself. For many years, I was very self-conscious of my voice. I didn't like hearing myself, and I think that's probably not untrue of a lot of people, particularly women, because we've been told from a very young age that, you know, we either don't have a voice or, you know, sit down and shut up kind of thing. But the kind of ironic part of it, and there's so much of this awakening process that we find in irony, is that my voice is actually part of one of my tools in healing other people.
Mhm.
So we have to look at what it is we're fearing or resisting or condemning ourselves for, and see if there's a belief there with a lie in it, and really exploit it in a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this whole thing is all about flip-flops. So if you can discover a belief, whether you think there's a lie in it or not, what you can do is you can look at that belief and say, well, how is this true and how is it not true? You can elevate yourself out of the ego mind space into that observer space that you were talking about, and just simply say, okay, that's what I've been believing. How is it serving me? Is it true or is it not true? And if it is true, do I want to continue believing it, or do I want to modify it, or do I want to maybe accentuate it, or I want to do something different with it? Or if it's not true, well, what do I want to do about it? If it's not true, then what is true?
And also taking the time to almost I would say meditate. I use that word cautiously, because for many people, meditation is almost a 4-letter word, or they think it's, you've got to be on a mountaintop and still, for me, the way that I opened up to meditating was I had my phone and I put a little app on there called Panda Pop, where, there's this panda that has a gun and he's popping balloons. And that occupied my mind, or as you say, the ego. And suddenly information was coming into me. So, and for some people, meditating is walking in nature. So actually taking the time, not just to sit there and say, okay, is this truth or is this not truth, but, to go on that journey within and say, or even like creating in your imagination. So this fear I have about my voice, where does this come from, first of all? How is it serving me, if it is still serving me? And how can I flip that? So for me, it was joining a choir was one of the first things I did. I went to a community chorus, and they were happy to have me. And the funny thing about our voices, many people love to sing but think they don't have a good singing voice. Well, your voice is almost like an instrument. You can train it. So again, look at these ways that you're shutting yourself down, thinking that you can't. Maybe in the past you couldn't, but that doesn't mean you can't forever.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think one of the things that I teach is that the word can't really has two possible meanings. Either I don't want to, or I don't know how. That's really all it means. And if you say I can't, meaning I don't want to, well, then be honest with it and say, no, that's not something I want to do. Be honest about it. If it's also something, the other thing, I don't know how, then be willing to admit that. I don't know how to do that. And I guess if I want to do it, then I have to learn something. Now, am I willing to do the effort to learn that thing so that I can do it? Yeah. And the other thing that I wanted to say is I was involved with Toastmasters for several years, and I ended up mentoring a lot of people. And of course, you know that statistically speaking, one of the biggest fears of all is the fear of public speaking. And yet every person I ever met who said, I'm afraid of public speaking, they were lying to themselves. Because every person I've ever met loves talking, just as long as they're not on stage. So I asked them, I said, since that's true, then what is it that you're really afraid of when you get on stage? And the answer is 99% of the time, it's, I'm afraid of what people are going to think of me. That's what they're worried about. They're worried about the judgment of others more than they're worried about whatever message they might have on stage. And the way I teach them to get over that is I say, okay, now I want you to think about this. The next time you see someone else up on stage speaking, ask yourself, how much am I judging this person? And again, most people are not judging the person. They might be resonating or agreeing or disagreeing with the content of the speech, but they're almost never judging the person. And when people realize that, all of a sudden the fear of public speaking really, really diminishes. And then they get up and they start speaking, and it's inspirational.
I have a higher message about judgment, if I might be able to share that. I know it's a little bit off topic. Well, I guess it isn't really.
There's nothing off topic here.
So when we have a fear of other people judging us and it holds us back, again, that's really self-limitation, because we don't have control about what anybody else thinks. We only have control of ourselves. And some
people would question whether we have control of ourselves too.
I was at a presentation, and the person was saying, you shouldn't judge someone else. And I had this kind of, I guess, awareness is what I'll call it. You could call it any number of things. But I could see how when we judge somebody else, it's usually because there's something about them that we admire, and we have a fear that we can't be that, or there's something that they're doing that we ultimately need to change within ourselves, but we're not ready to see it in ourselves yet. We see it in them, but we can't see it in ourselves. So I started seeing how judgment is really a self-reflection, if you will. So that kind of extrapolated to this point of if someone else is judging me, that's their stuff. And I have compassion for them for whatever they may be experiencing mirrored from me. So I can let that go. But then I need to pay attention to how I'm judging others, because that's telling me about me. So that can be a hugely opening way to not be affected by judgment of others, but to use it as a tool for self-improvement.
Absolutely, yeah. Judgment is nothing more than the externalized expression of a projection. It's almost always, I see something in you that either I dislike or I like, that I'm not able to admit within myself. So if I see you, the word that always comes up for me is arrogance. If I see arrogance in someone, that's one of my shadows, because arrogance is something that I got called, a lot by people in my younger days. And so I'm sensitive to that particular phrase. And so I tend to notice if I am judging someone else as being arrogant, I say, oh yeah, that's that part of me that I've had so much difficulty acknowledging and owning. So you're absolutely right. It's a judgment in that sense is a beautiful gift. And I think we would all do well to learn how to recognize our judgments as such. But now I'd like to also say that not all judgments are bad things. I mean, we have to make judgments about decisions all the time. Okay, that's one form of judgment. Well, when we're judging people, it's usually because we're projecting some hidden aspect of ourselves that we don't want to acknowledge or own.
So I would love to add to what you just said, David, in that there's a great quote. It's, I don't know if you've ever heard of Rumi.
Oh, yeah. I read his stuff.
There's a quote by Rumi that the wound is the place where the light enters us. Right. And so rather than, shying away from these wounds, and in this case, you just talked about this wound of being called arrogant when you didn't feel like you were being arrogant. So when that happens, when you see this person and you see them as arrogant and you said, oh, okay, here's that, thing, just flood yourself with unconditional love.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And in that way, you've become an emotional transformer within yourself.
Sorry, you're freezing up a little bit again. Can you still hear me?
I can't hear you now.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Pardon me, I just
Bless you.
I muted myself to sneeze and I got caught by a second one. I apologize for that. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I agree 100% on the idea of being gentle with ourselves, loving ourselves. Unconditional love is really the only solution, and we can all benefit from directing it towards ourselves, because then once we do that, we can then easily, much more easily, share our unconditional love with others. It's all yours.
So I think the other thing that I really wanted to explain or share is this sense of us being eternal beings, and we're here having this human experience. So many times we've had these patterns or these, you aptly use the expression rabbit holes in your promo, these rabbit holes that we fall into. But when we can see ourselves as a human, a spiritual being having a human experience, and that this is just one of myriad experiences that we will have, are having, did have, whatever, then we can kind of quest to have new experiences. So if that old pattern is, knock, knock, knocking, the mind or the observer self can say, oh, there's that rabbit hole again. I already know how I feel when I engage with that. I've been there, I've done that, I've, so many times. I'm choice, and sometimes happiness is just a fraction of a turn away from that thing that causes us pain. But as I said earlier, since the mind sees what it thinks it will see, or the ego sees what it thinks it will see, we need to retrain it. We need to turn and look, and kind of getting back to that energy about feeling we have to do or achieve, or what's our path, and having this idea that it's grandiose. What if we just have to live as being happy, being joy-filled, feeling special, understanding that we're here because, just like a fingerprint, our soul essence has a fingerprint, if you will, that only we can share here, only we can ground if we watch ourselves and watch for things that take us away from joy, take us away from happiness, take us away from being our true self, the self we knew as a child and can remember. It makes it more manageable.
Right, and yeah, that's really a beautiful thing, and I totally agree with the statement about the way I say it is slightly different. I'm a divine, magnificent, unlimited spiritual being of light and love who just happens to be sharing a human experience with everyone else on this planet. And I believe that's true of all of us. We don't necessarily always see each other that way, and that's primarily due to the fact that we have an ego mind that, as you said before, and as I have said, filters everything out that it disbelieves, right? So consequently, we don't always see ourselves as the divine, magnificent unlimited spiritual beings of light and love that we truly are. And that's okay. It's not like it's a bad thing. It's an opportunity, though. The moment we get caught into that little cycle, it's an opportunity to remember the truth of who we really are. And that's ultimately, I think, the big goal that I'm interested in achieving for my life, is to have as many people as possible come to that understanding, the truth of who they really are. Because if everybody could do that, I believe, the world would instantly be in bliss. So part of our journey, these opportunities, which are disguised as challenges and difficulties, part of our journey is to continually be remembering. So we forget and then we remember. We forget and we remember. And what we're trying to do is just narrow the gap between forgetting and remembering, so that we're always remembering.
And if we can realize that when we were born, we knew unlimited information. We knew exactly who we were here to be. This is why childhood healing is so important, because, you know, that word remember, if you hyphenate it, remember, bring back into our member, into our body, into our consciousness, who we are, what we are, and ultimately that truth is we are love.
Yeah.
We are light.
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. Ultimately, the bottom line is what you are is pure love. What I am is pure love. And we're all part of the same energy. We're just expressing in slightly different ways so that we can have different kinds of experiences. That's really what it boils down to. Life isn't that complicated when we think about it that way. And it's another tool I think, you know, is we're in our heads so much of the time. And the swallow, when we swallow, we can feel that swallow go down to our chest. Mm-hmm. And the heart space to more of that space of surrender that we talked about earlier. So when you find yourself in your head a lot, just swallow. Well, and then great, imagine your mind is in your heart. That's right? Beautiful. I've used other techniques, but that's the first time anyone has ever mentioned the swallow. That is beautiful. I like that.
I actually have a little info guide and kind of MP3 on my site when people sign up for my email that goes through the process for that.
Well, I was just about to ask you that. I mean, we're getting close to our closing time here, so I want to make sure I give you a chance to offer a gift, if you like, to the people. Can you just put the link in the chat below and just describe again what it is you're offering?
Okay, let me just finish typing. So on my website, I do have a myriad of free videos and blogs and tools for self-awareness, self-expansion, getting to that place of joy. I also do private one-to-one sessions and have a catalog of, excuse me, chakra-based energy clearing audio visuals, or not, they're not visual, sorry, just audio healing sessions. But this thing I just mentioned, it's 4 easy steps for connecting and living from your heart space. So it's really, again, you know, taking that time to just get out of the mind, get out of that, you know, do, tense, lack, and get into this almost again like melting into the heart. And in the heart, everything is provided. Answers will come more easily. resources will come to you that you didn't expect
Nice.
when you get more into this heart space living.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Wow, Kristi, it's been an hour. I know we had a little bit of a glitch in the middle and we lost a little time there, but I do have to wrap this up. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before I close out and finish the episode?
Just thank you so much for having me and for helping to, amplify love and light. And just for those who may, be listening either live or in replay, just know that you're important or you wouldn't be here. So maybe things haven't been easy, but there are ways to change your path. There are ways to just turn maybe, 10 or 15 degrees from where you've been focusing, and joy is so close.
Absolutely.
So just be conscious of the choices you're making. And as we become aware, it brings us more choices, and that allows us to change.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Kristi. It's been great having you here. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I can tell that you and I are very much in alignment in terms of the kind of work that we like to do, even though we have slightly different ways of describing it. I know it's the same energy. And I actually like that there's a little bit of a difference there. That's kind of cool. And anyway, I want to thank all of you for being here for the live presentation, and also for anybody who's watching the recording. I just want to remind you that you can see this recording or the recording for this show and all others on my website at lifemasterytv.com. That's life-mastery-tv.com. I hope you'll drop by, grab an account, and start watching some of the other great shows that we have there. I truly hope you enjoyed today's presentation. In a few hours, you're going to probably receive an email from the Learn It Live platform. I hope you will see fit to give us a review, a nice positive review for this show, and help us to spread the word, because that's what we do. We want to get more people growing and developing on this planet. And then finally today, I'd like to remind you about my life mastery mantra, something that I like to recite for myself every day, and I hope that you will start using it every day as well. It goes like this: I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. So until we meet again, my name is David McLeod, your Life Mastery Coach, wishing you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. See you next time right here on Life Mastery TV.